Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to the main event, part 3 of 04-05 in our rundown of Champions League history. I'm Martyn in the chair, in case you didn't know that, if you haven't been listening for the past year or whatever. And I'm joined, as always, by my two bestest pals, Adam Thornton. How are we doing?
Good, thank you. I think it will be worthwhile at the Q&A stage, as you mentioned, picking what you think your top games are, because there's maybe not one in these semi-finals, but certainly the final.
Yeah, the finals get a bit to chat about. Davey, how are we doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, well, this is, I'm sure when we started this, a lot of the listeners would have been looking forward to this particular final. It is one of the more memorable ones, and a couple of interesting semi-finals before we even get there.
There certainly are. Let's go with the Milan PSV then, Adam, please. Looks all over. Looks very comfortable. Milan won 2-0. Shevchenko, obviously. Yondal Thomason, who did pop up with his fair share of goals for Milan. Plucky PSV, we mentioned before last week, very well managed, using resources wisely, absolutely reached their ceiling, taking a bit of a Tonkin, didn't get the away goal, game pretty much over. Perhaps a little sign of Milan's fragility that maybe isn't evident on paper, that with just over an hour of the second leg going, it's all level, and Eindhoven are back very much in it. They're 2-0 up. Park and Koku's such a clever signing at that stage of his career, and momentum with the Dutch, Adam, but then Ambrosini in injury time, getting the Milan got kind of kills it. PSV do get another, but it's completely academic with Koku. But this very much in the balance. It probably shouldn't have been in the balance, but again, for anyone paying attention, there's maybe some signs there that this team aren't as resolute as you perhaps think, because it is the great Milan and they have won how many European Cups and Champions Leagues.
No, I think so. And these teams, these old teams that have played together for years, the one thing they do not like is bags and bags of pace on the counter, and that's certainly what PSV give them. Some sensible signings, like we mentioned, that know how to marshal a midfield or marshal a defence. I think you're spot on. I think you look at the defence from Milan, and that was, I think, pretty much their only decisions really are, which one of my great players do I play in defence, because you've still got Costa Curta on the bench, still got Kaladze on the bench, Serginho's there as well. It's an embarrassment of riches everywhere. Rui Costa can come on, Crespo doesn't even start the game. So it is one of those ones. Complacency can get you at any point, and I think they were very, very fortunate probably to get through. But I completely take your point that whether it's thinking the job is done, whether it is just taking your foot off the gas a little bit, like you said, they've got everything that they need. They've got the away goal as well. Could be shades of what comes to pass in the final, 100%.
I think as well, everybody, or the other three rather, wanted PSV, and understandably so. But any team that gets to a Champions League semi-final can play a bit, and you can't do that. And it's a cliche because it's true. It's very difficult once you take the foot off the gas to just go, all right, lads, we need to get the foot back on it and get stuck into it. But you're absolutely right. Like a lot of things when we look back in this show, that you think, wow, that collapse in the final, it didn't come from absolutely nowhere. there is evidence if you go back and look for it. It's one of the things I love about this show.
I Deportivo to that as well, which is only last season. It's in the ether there. Okay then, Davey.
Yes.
Liverpool versus Chelsea, or Chelsea versus Liverpool for the first leg. Chelsea are a far better team than this Liverpool team. I don't think that's controversial at all. I think I'd enjoyed a very good season, and they were enjoying a very good season. Only a defeat against Newcastle in the FA Cup had kind of spoiled that. Chelsea beating Liverpool in the League Cup final, again, not without controversy, not without Mourinho making a lot of noise and a lot of drama, shushing supporters and all that kind of stuff. 0-0, first leg, tense as all hell. We would get used to this with these two, of course. And then Anfield, my memories, that 0-0, okay, that's very different from Chelsea's their moments against Barcelona and Bayern, where they scored 3 goals in no time at all, but they haven't conceded. They probably will score. Therefore, they're actually kind of favourites going into Anfield, even though Anfield, European nights, they're beaten Bayer Leverkusen very handily, beaten Juventus very handily. And it didn't quite happen like that. Mourinho will say, in fact, he still does say that it was 0-0.
He does.
Liverpool's goal, Luis Garcia. I mean, I'm not saying it's particularly close, to be honest. That was not over the line. It wasn't a goal. Early on, just maybe set a tone and things that Adam's pointed out in the show already, that something is just with Liverpool in this season. They are kind of put together, but they raise their game on moments, not over the course of a 30-game season. And to be fair, Chelsea and Mourinho kind of lose the rag a wee bit. Big Huth sent up front. I think Gudjohnsen misses a really good chance late on to, finish it. It's 1 goal. And there's maybe a wee bit of panic there that we haven't seen. But it was, my kind of semi-finals, I guess, because it was breathless. It was absolutely on edge from top to bottom.
Yes, it was. And again, being able to set a team up for the occasion. We would get used to these tactical battles between these two managers over the next few seasons. And these are two sides who are very, very much aware of what the opposition can do in an attacking sense, and have worked out ways to try and stop it, which of course is then ratcheted up by the tension, because Gudjohnsen buries that pretty much any other game this season, doesn't he? That chance. But tension does things to people within matches. Liverpool's setup is very effective. And yeah, Chelsea, maybe because they've been sweeping all before, because they weren't just winning games at this point, Martin. They were, it was 3s and 4s every week. They were just destroying sides, absolutely running all over the top of them. And Liverpool sort of set up to dam that, to block and to stop them doing the things. One of the things when I went back and I watched extended highlights of this for the game that I forgot is Liverpool's tactical fouling is on point. And that's something we associate more with Mourinho, isn't it? The darker side of the game. But Liverpool's tactical fouling in this, and not ones you'd get booked for, but regular, and they annoy the hell out of the Chelsea team. And I do think that Liverpool win the psychological battle. Of course, Chelsea have a right to be resentful about the goal, because I'm a great believer that an official can't give a goal. It's too important unless he's sure, and you cannot be 100% that ball has crossed the line, mainly because it hasn't. And again, younger listeners listening to this must be going, well, why didn't the ref look at his watch? Well, young folks, there was a time that even in the Champions League semi-final where we didn't have goal line technology, and it was just down to whether or not the linesman gave it, which he did in this occasion. I still fully expected Chelsea to come back
Yes,
and get. When they were only needing one, I still felt that they would roar back. But Liverpool's discipline in this game is good. And as I say, they are quite prepared to foul. They're quite prepared to take yellows if need be. They have got players who we mentioned last week, their spine is solid. So they've got people who are, they have the ability to solidify areas where Chelsea like to play in. And what is especially, I thought, effective was the way that they neutralised Chelsea's wingers by denying them space. It's not a low block, but when it had to be, they had absolutely no objections to 4 deep and 5 strung in front of it. It's an incredibly pragmatic performance from Benítez. And again, to just reiterate your point, because I do think it's important, Chelsea mentally do not handle it as well as they would go on and do in a few years, basically.
Easy to make this argument, Adam, because it's all theory and, you can't prove me wrong. But if Chelsea just stick to what's worked for them all season, if they keep the head, I think they probably do find a goal. I think they were a bit panicked and the manager's stress, and he kind of lives with stress pretty much all the time. Just came to the fore a wee bit in the latter stages of this game.
Yeah, I think it's. I think that is something that you could probably criticise Mourinho for. The grievance factor, I think, is a big thing there that probably is to his detriment a little bit, because he doesn't really need to do it. The whole world is against me trick works once; it doesn't work halfway through your third season, 5 clubs in a row. So yeah, I think that there's shades of that here, and I think they get caught up in it. Ironically, against the grievance champions of the world, but that's by the by. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. Probably just got spooked because I think they both knew this wasn't going to be a free scoring 2 legs. I think that was obviously proved in the first one. So I think that first goal was really important. Yeah, allied to the fact it's Anfield as well. And yeah, I think you're right. They probably I expected, watching the game, 100% expected Chelsea to come back and at least get it in the extra time. I think would have been the thing for me, particularly when you look at the team. They are better in every position for me. So it was a shock, I think, to see it go the way it did.
Turkey then, Istanbul, a departure for a European Cup final for sure. Adam, Milan favourites, pretty much unanimous, I think, with pundits and bookies alike. Arsene Wenger said no. He said that Milan will be shattered after the way the league finished. Now, we didn't quite know at that time just how and why the league maybe finished the way it did. A wee bit of light on that, because Juve win in inverted commas, would be stripped of them, of course. But what were the circumstances around that? And was Wenger right to say, I'm not sure they'll see out the course of a big high pressure game like that?
Yeah, I guess in hindsight you could say it. I know he wasn't saying it in hindsight. Yeah, I'm not sure. That is a tricky one. It wouldn't have helped. I think it's fair to say. But I think at that stage of the season, you get through on the adrenaline a little bit. I'm not sure what we watched in the final was. I'm not sure it was so much about Milan falling off a cliff or anything like that physically. I think they get the better of this first half, which we'll come on to and do a bit of a blow by blow. I think the goals quite nicely sum up the tactical changes for both teams, all 6 of them, to be honest. So yeah, I think it was just one of these situations. They don't look tired in the first half, and I don't necessarily think that they fatigued so much in the second half that Liverpool ran all over them. I think it was a lot more nuanced and a lot more clever than that. So maybe the way that Serie A ended, it might have been in the back of their minds. But I wouldn't have thought so, given the context of they've not exactly been dominant in the league, but they were still managing to get the Champions League over the line in 2003, and they would go on again. So yeah, not sure on that one. I guess only Wenger would know what he's thinking, but it wouldn't be the first time he was contrarian about things. So
yeah, it's not like him. Davey, Jamie Carragher, Liverpool player, was not in agreement with Wenger. He said that Milan were absolutely favourites. This Liverpool team really nowhere near the 2001 UEFA Cup winning Liverpool team. It's in transition. The manager's in and making changes. Kind of, we shouldn't really be here. Milan have won this. They've been very close and other occasions semi-finalists and whatever else as well. We hear players do this all the time, don't we? Because Benítez was like, yeah, no, they are favourites, but we believe we can win, and it's just up to us on the night, kind of thing. Just playing that perfectly, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, Carragher's point looked really valid in the first half. To be fair to him, there's lots of different reasons. I think in the build-up to a match where you're not the favourite, I think it is silly to try and gaslight people. And I think that the way that you handle it is exactly as you said he did, which is, we know we're not the favourites. However, we believe we can win it. That the fact that we're here shows that we have quality. That's all you need to say in a situation like that. Carragher, of course, has gone on to make a career for his honesty. But I think, and we're going to discuss this, Benítez gets his team wrong. Wonderfully described by a Liverpool fan that I know, who I asked about his memories of this. He said at half time, the key changes when we replaced the pea-hearted Harry Kewell, a player with a pea-sized heart, with Didi Hamann, and it's true he gets the team selection wrong. But Martyn, you and I have recently enjoyed the book Unruly by David Mitchell, in which he states that sometimes things just happen. And for Milan, I agree with Adam. I think that this idea that they just suddenly lost their legs, they got caught in something that really wasn't of their making. It wasn't that they made terrible mistakes and suddenly Liverpool, they just got caught in this. And then we all recognise, we've all been in football stadiums when you think something is happening, and when it's your team, it's wonderful, and when it's happening against your team, it's bloody awful. Exactly. You see it, you know it, and footballers are human beings. And I think that in that second half, Liverpool players grow from it. They are possessed by the spirit of something amazing is going to happen. And of course, there are moments, the Shevchenko chance, etc. Dudek, who I never thought was anything more than an average goalkeeper, if I'm being honest, has the night of his life. But I think that sometimes things do just happen that shouldn't. Liverpool should not win this match. 9 times out of 10, based on the two squads, they should certainly not win this match from 3-0 down at half-time. And yet they somehow do. It's called the miracle of Istanbul, and in a football sense it was. But momentum, oh my goodness, momentum in football so much. As soon as they got it to 3-2, then even watching on TV at home, you knew what was coming, and it's such a power. This is a great game, I think, for those of us who enjoy the psychological aspect of football, as well as an exciting game and a wonderful story. But the psychology of this match changes so often. Before it, how are Liverpool approaching it? They're not the favourites. They're up against a star-studded team. The first half, they collapse. They do. They you see them visibly well under this pressure. Milan are carrying themselves like, of course we are going to win this. We're better than you. We're AC Milan. We are European champions. This is what we do. And yet the second half, oh my goodness, the change is so dramatic.
Adam, I think one of our listeners had maybe mentioned in the thread about this Milan starting 11 being possibly the best in a Champions League final. I'd still maybe go back to that 95 final and those two teams that lined up that night. But Dida, Maldini, Nesta, Stam, Cafu, Pirlo at the base, Seedorf, Gattuso, Kaka at 10, and Crespo and Shevchenko as a front pair. I mean, I think Dida's a dud, I'll be honest, but that as an outfield 10, that's creaky in some areas, just in terms of the age, certainly Maldini. But, I mean, Nesta and Stam is a pretty formidable centre-half pair, and that midfield 4 is incredible. We talked about that swap, Rui Costa for Kaka, and Crespo's intelligence playing off Shevchenko. I mean, it is a wonderful, wonderful first 11.
Yeah, it really is. I think you're being picky about it, and it has been very picky. It's maybe just missing a little bit of, or not a little bit, a lot of pace. I would say. I love wingers. People that have listened to these shows for a while will hear me waxing lyrical about all of the wonderful wingers that we've discussed. It's probably why I fell out of love with Serie A and fell into love with the Premier League and La Liga at times, because they had those explosive wingers coming to the fore in the 4-3-3s that sort of left Serie A behind. So if I was being hypercritical about it, yeah, I don't think so. I would still have the Ajax team up there. 1 to 11, it's nowhere near as talented, and probably not even as well balanced a team and all that sort of stuff. But just personal preference, excitement, all that sort of stuff. I think I would probably, I'd probably go with that. But they're definitely not far behind. Crespo and Shevchenko weren't exactly lacking in pace. We'll come on to
No,
really good opportunities that they had there. But yeah, maybe just the midfield, or maybe in defence, maybe just a little bit more pace. Cafu was great at it, but not none of the others really had huge amounts. So yeah, if I was being hypercritical, maybe just a little bit more pace in there. But yeah, great team, absolutely.
In contrast, and just to reiterate Davy's point, that this Liverpool team should just not be winning this matchup. Jersey Dudek, Steve Finnan, Jamie Carragher, okay, Sami Hyypiä, decent, Jimmy Traore, nope.
No.
Xavi Alonso, obviously, but still early Xavi Alonso.
Yep.
Luis Garcia, Steven Gerrard, of course, Jonan Arisa, which I did quite like, I'll be honest. Harry Kewell and Milan Baros. Yeah, the decision to go without Haman was a big call. It didn't work. Just talk about this first half, guys, because it isn't necessarily the storm that we think it, or the one-way storm that we think it might be. We should have known that we were in for a night when Paolo Maldini is sweeping one in the first minute of a Champions League final from a Pirlo free kick, a Shevchenko finish there from Maldini. We should have known there's something in the air that this is not going to be a normal kind of night. Because it was an absolutely brilliant goal, the oldest goal scorer, I think, in the final of the competition's history. But then, I think Risa had a shot pretty, almost immediately. Hyypiä had a header as well. Liverpool, they're racing back into it. You've got goals kind of chopped off. You get, again, stuff off the line. Crespo had a shot off the line, I think. And then Milan do extend that lead. Brilliant by Kaka, and then Shevchenko, and then Crespo's ability just to retain composure, stay on side, and sweep it in. But Adam, for all the action in this game, I'll talk about Kewell in a moment, by the way, but for all the action in this game and all the moments, I don't think anything as good as this third Milan goal. The pass from Kaka from just inside his own half, or certainly deep inside the Liverpool half, the vision to get it right round onto the on-rushing Crespo, the dink, and that one fluid movement. As someone sitting watching at home thinking this is a masterclass up there with 94, it's going to get quite brutal here, because that is just utterly superb. Liverpool are in disarray. Kewell, who I never liked really, comes off. He does a bit of a kind of Barisic there. I guess I think he feigns it, and it's Vladimir Šmiša that comes on for Q in that first half. He still hasn't put Haman on yet. That's a conversation that's going to take place at half time. But Liverpool in this disarray still had the chances though, Adam. But it's that clinical Italian or Milanese, if you like, combinations that are just making such a difference.
Yeah, so third goal was the most aesthetically pleasing, 100%. It's a terrific goal. The second one, I think, sums up both teams' tactical approach or how Milan got the better of Liverpool. The first goal changes the game. I mean, we talk about that. We talk about this all the time. Game state is a huge thing. Milan getting that goal psychologically, the better team getting the goal, it also lets them do what they want. Lets them do what they do. We'll just sit back and let them puff themselves out, and we'll hit them on the counter. They kind of did that. They went long quite a bit to win knockdowns, which you wouldn't really expect for Shevchenko, Crespo, and Kaka. You wouldn't really expect that. Liverpool played Gerrard and Alonso as a two deep. Neither are really defensive midfielders in the way that Haman is. Milan's midfield four. Seedorf, Gattuso, Pirlo, and Kaka just overwhelmed them. Gattuso and Seedorf would go wide and stretch the play and just kill them down the sides as well. And I think that's a key point. Liverpool are trying to play Alonso and Gerrard to combat Milan's threat, but also offer an attacking threat of their own. But I guess the thing that not that they discounted it doesn't really matter what they think. Great players find a way. Kaka is more than capable of dealing with two men on his own if he's in the mood. So he's always going to get some joy. Seen it with the second goal. 4 of them going for him. All at sea. 4 of them going to challenge him. He just lifts that simple pass over to Crespo. And then we talk about this all the time. It's balance. It's positive reaction, negative reaction. If you've got 2 players on Kaka, then guess what? Andrea Pirlo has the freedom of the pitch just to stroke things about and do whatever he wants to do. It's all about that mathematical equation. Maldini and Cafu providing all the width down the sides. We spoke about Liverpool's fullbacks and how they're not great. He had Risa on one side to try and combat Cafu because Cafu against Traore would not have been fair for anyone.
You couldn't have shown that before 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so I think Ancelotti getting that goal, first of all, he was able to just draw them out, and then you've seen the space in behind for Crespo and Shevchenko to run into, whether it was directly or down the channels, acres and acres of space. Liverpool's issues in that first half for me, fullbacks too deep, like we said. Stephen and Jimmy Traore, what are you expecting?
That's fear.
I know what. Yeah, what are you expecting? I get it. But yeah, Gerrard dropped them too deep, as we said. They were forced to sort of play long passes as well, but they just got swept up because Milan Baros is isolated against 2 of the best centre halves of the 10 years or so before that. So really, what are you expecting? Q a bit of a non-event. Luis Garcia out on the flank again, a little bit of a non-event as well. So yeah, I think first half certainly. That was the picture for me. The goal changes it and lets Milan play the way they want to. They can just sit in and pick them off. But I think some of the decisions Liverpool made, particularly fullbacks and central midfield, didn't give them a fighting chance in that first half. And obviously they would go on and change it in the second.
Davey, Gattuso kisses the trophy on the way back down. Liverpool players are angry enough. They're 3-0 down. They know it could be 6. They know it could be a lot closer. But this is an absolute nightmare. Biggest stage, one shot at glory and all that. Gerrard speaks about just letting Benítez do what he needs to do. That there is a substitution. Finnan comes off for Haman. They go at 3 at the back and get a bit of stability in there. A huge moment. Interested in Adam's thoughts on what Haman provides that they didn't have in that first half. But Gerrard just kept speaking to the players about just get the first goal. Give the fans something. They've been brilliant this season. They've been brilliant throughout this run. They need something. And you just never know. Well, that's what happened.
The odds on it, I mean, this is before in-game betting, but my goodness, can you imagine the odds on this comeback? It seemed unreal. If you're going to do something like that, by the way, the kissing the cup, you've got to win it then, because you look like a fanny. And I bow.
Davey, they'd won it.
But
There's
that's
no
the thing.
conceivable way that this. Fair enough. An underdog that just races into a lead, you're still thinking, right? Is the baddie going to catch them in the end? Like all those. This is over. This game does not have a pulse.
I agree, but that's what I mean. But if you're going to do that, you then have to go and win it. And God, see, when you were reading out the 2-11s, though, I'm like, this is frigging ludicrous. Steve Finnan and Jimmy Traore, and you look at who they're up against. And in the first half, you're right, it's not the complete swamp in the one-way traffic or whatever. A la, for example, that first 20 minutes we saw Chelsea against Barcelona.
Yeah.
We discussed. It's not that, but it's quality. It's when, Liverpool are going to have to work a lot harder, you feel, to turn their opportunities into goals than Milan are, because the quality difference is stark. And it looks that way in the first half, where you think, this is just one side doing much better than the other. In the second half, the Milan relax, there's no doubt about it. They don't start the second half with the same tempo. And I think that you have to respect, we mentioned earlier about not playing the badge, about playing the 11, and that is true. But you do have to respect the badge.
Mm.
And there are certain clubs for whom comebacks like this can happen, and certain clubs for whom comebacks like this cannot happen. There are certain clubs for who special nights can happen, and certain clubs who it won't. And Liverpool are one of these clubs. There is a romance in it, and whether or not you believe that sort of thing should affect, it does affect the players who play for that club. And in Gerrard, they have someone who believes he can do these things. And there's a lot of times, by the way, that Gerrard tried this and couldn't. Remember the infamous Chelsea match, the slip game, where he's shooting from the moon. So there were games where it didn't happen, but there were games that it did, and this is one of them. And he's absolutely right. You cannot focus on, we need to get 3 goals back, because it's too far away, it's too big. Just get one, and then we'll see where we are, right? And then we'll see if it adds anything into. And I watching it back, and I remember this at the time at 3-1. I didn't think the comeback's on. I don't think Milan did either.
No,
they don't appear. At 3-2, Milan do suddenly alter visibly. I think you can see there's a reaction, but suddenly there's now an element of risk and chance that has not been there really from the start of the game, because they get the goal so early. So suddenly, midway through the second half, they are completely upended psychologically. And for a side with that amount of experience to not handle it, and they don't, I think they do recover, I think, slightly in extra time. And that's to their credit. But they are shell-shocked in the last 20 of this match, I think.
It just shows you that this is one of the best 11s, as we said, we've seen in the Champions League final, and they can't stop the force of sport momentum for a bit. Eventually they do. I remember 3-1, okay, interesting night.
Yeah, nice.
Smeesha's goal, someone almost or definitely does handball it, I think, in the way in, by the way. And I was like you, when it got to 3-2, so well, Liverpool are going to equalise at some point. They also do with the penalty. Well, penalty saved, and Alonso follows up his own penalty and slams it in the net. But I don't, Adam, remember thinking, right, well, it's going to be Liverpool's now. I just remember thinking, we have got a genuine final. We're back to kind of square one, because this Milan side it's just too good. They were able, as David said, to put some kind of blockers on it, and then we got this kind of contest. Extra time, Shevchenko,
the save. Yeah,
has
that's
to
what I
score,
thought.
an incredible save from Dudek. Shevchenko again, who's just been such a story in this Champions League for 10 years now. Maybe, about 10 years. And obviously again it goes to penalties. But your thoughts on Haman's introduction and what that gave Liverpool, and Milan's inability to stop the flood to parity, but then their ability to say, right, enough fucking nonsense. We will not lose this in 90 minutes, or there won't be a fourth, effectively.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, Haman coming on, they moved to a back three or a back five, which, again, game state doesn't negate Milan, or Milan just quite happy to sit back and not attack now because they think the game is won. But regardless, it nullifies. They're able to. We mentioned there Shevchenko, Crespo, Kaka, the fact that you've got Traore, Hyypiä, and Carragher as your back three. Traore has been moved out the way of left back, which would help. You've also got Haman in there as a proper defensive midfielder, offering a little bit of solidity, positional awareness, anticipation that maybe the other two don't have in there. Risa as a bombing fullback means that you can then match up with Cafu on that side. Smeetser was the fullback on the other side, effectively. So it makes it a little bit more solid, but then what it does is it releases Steven Gerrard to play where Steven Gerrard should always play, that box-to-box guy. So all of a sudden, Milan Barros is not isolated. Luis Garcia has moved into the centre as well, and he's behind Barros as well, so he can connect things through the middle a little bit as well. Pirlo's again not getting the space then because of that. So it's all that sort of mathematical equation that it took them almost too long to fix, which I think was certainly key. So yeah, and I think you see elements of that. Risa for the first goal, further forward, ball into the box, fantastic header by Gerrard. That would not have happened in the first half because Jordan Risa wasn't in a situation where he could do that, and also Steven Gerrard wouldn't have been far enough up the pitch to get that done. So again, it's those tweaks that result in that goal. Similar to Smeetser, he has a wing back at this point in this game, but he probably played a similar role to what Gattuso was doing on the other team, I guess, playing a little bit wider and trying to pick up space, and you see it happen. He moves in centrally, picks up a bit of space, just needs a split second to get a decent shot. The keeper should do better with that goal, 100%. I don't think that's a great one. So yeah, just these little bits and pieces. I think Luis Garcia playing central, like I said, for the third goal, drags Stam out, creates the space for Gerrard to run through and attack it and win that penalty. So it was all really interesting how it transpired. It's obviously so dramatic with one team being so far ahead and then getting pegged back, particularly in that 7 or 8 minutes. But I think you're spot on. Once it gets to that hour point there, Milan are obviously rocking. They don't make any subs, which I think is quite interesting. Again, they've got decent players on the bench, but maybe they've not got players on the bench that would change the game. They've got Rui Costa, who at this stage is not
extra time he comes on. Is he on for penalties?
Yeah.
116.
Yeah, Rui Costa, who's not. Kaka, Serginho comes on. Fair enough. That's a decent move, but he comes on in a sort of left mid capacity for Seedorf. And then other than that, John Dal Thomason, who, with the greatest of respect, well, with no respect really, isn't playing ahead of Shevchenko and Crespo. So yeah, they probably just didn't have players that could change what they had there. So maybe it's not a surprise that it didn't really change anything in that respect. But yeah, it's funny because, like I said, I hadn't really thought about this final for too many years, to be honest. And you just sort of think of it in your head, Steven Gerrard, British spirit, inspirational, coming back for the dead. But watching it through the kind of tactical lens, it's quite interesting. Some of the things Ancelotti did in the first half to get that lead, and then fair play to Benítez, what he did. He rectified his mistakes. We sort of said that in the United game, didn't we? That Ferguson probably didn't rectify his mistakes and then managed to get it over the line at the end. Oh, Benítez certainly did, and gets them in back in the game, back in the competition. And one thing he probably could do at that point is when it goes to 3-3, he's going to make damn sure that he's not going to concede any more silly goals and try and get them to penalties. Which, yeah, fair play.
One thing I thought maybe worthy of mention was we spoke about this with Mourinho and the personality of the manager and how it obviously can be a plus or a negative, but their mood and what it communicates to the player. Well, Benítez is not somebody who's going to go in there and give you an any given Sunday speech, is he? But equally, he's not somebody who's going to go in there and be visibly upset and flustered and shouting at his players, for being 3-0 down and throwing teacups and stuff. He's going to go in and he's going to be measured and still treat it like we're still a game of football we can win, and almost keep them calm in that way and stem off, because you're getting, humiliated in Champions League final. And I wonder if his taciturn personality in this moment was actually an advantage, because you've still got your swashbuckler and your inspirational leader there. You've got Hupia, who was also a big kind of shouty leader type. But I wonder if the manager's, as I say, his very dourness actually worked to his advantage on this occasion.
I think he was concerned with the substitution, really, and I think that appears to be what he was kind of looking at, maybe focused with what change do I make. He knows his captain's going to do all the shouting, and Gerrard did a lot of shouting by all accounts. He did a lot of things to get off his chest. He allowed Benítez to speak for a bit, but he wasn't going to be silent all the way through that. But yeah, I mean, you get Smeacher cramping up. Carragher looks like he's got one leg at the end.
Sorry, Martin, to interrupt. One of my favourite interviews ever was Jamie Carragher afterwards saying, "I got a pain in one of my groins."
Yeah, but just now really, really running through fire. The acid in those legs must have been absolutely excruciating in some cases. And Milan they've kind of got a foothold back in the game, but can't obviously make that count, and it goes to penalties. And maybe that's when the realization, like, fuck, the ribbons were on the black bit, and as well as the red and white were on this. This was ours, and now it isn't, and now it's a crapshoot, and they missed their first two penalties. Liverpool give them a wee hand by missing one of their own. Who missed theirs again? Risa, weirdly, he's quite a good
very good
striker of the ball. But I mean, it's Serginho and Pirlo. I mean, Pirlo isn't missing penalty kicks. Certainly later in his career. And Adam, it's Shevchenko that misses the kind of fateful one, and Jerzy Dudek again. I think we're all in agreement. There's a lot of average keepers kicking about, maybe kicking about Europe really at this time, but certainly kicking about this final. But he has the night. It's his. He does a bit of the grobbler, because I can remember Liverpool and Milan have won the big one on penalties. I don't know. I can't think if they've been beaten in a penalty shootout from memory. And Dudek does a bit of the grobbler from 84, and it's theirs. And it was, I think, in terms of Champions League, again, we'll maybe come back to it. I think Chelsea and Munich was maybe a more ridiculous. I know that the sums don't quite add up that way, but they were utterly battered.
They got 90 minutes of battering that night.
But at this point, I'd never seen a game like this, Adam, at that level.
No. I remember, I think I watched this in the Griffin after work. The Griffin round about this time used to do pie chips, beans and a pint for about £3.20, so I was never out there on midweek nights. I remember watching it in there, watching it back. The Dudek, the grobbler thing, it dates it so horrendously. I think it takes a bit of, doesn't take the shine off winning the title, but for a neutral, in terms of the spectacle, I'm like, Jesus, that is horrendous.
I hate that. I mean, I know that to Liverpool fans, it's got a special, place in their heart because Grobbelaar did it, but I don't act like a fanny. He would argue that it worked. I don't think they miss the penalties because you're acting like a fanny, mate. I think they miss the penalties because their heads have gone.
Spot on.
But you do what you can, right? I mean,
I know. I just don't like it.
Available.
I don't like it, right? I think Emilio Martinez is a fanny, right? So it's
I wish he was in penalties in Seville.
Saving them anyway. But that's the thing. You do what you can. If you come out 8, you win. And not a single Liverpool fan will give a flying fuck what I think. So it doesn't matter. But see, just listening to you discuss this, lads, and I'm still probably reeling a wee bit from when Martyn read the teams out. Because let's be honest, we've tried to analyse this as much as we can. Other people have tried. This is fucking insane, right?
Yeah.
This should not have happened. This cannot happen. This Milan team cannot lose to this Liverpool team. And look, we've seen far better Liverpool teams since. Far better that have won Champions League finals, where you would look at their players and go, all right, I could see how this would happen. This cannot result in how it turns out, and yet it does.
That's why we love the game. And 2 managers anyway, at least back in England, utterly furious. Mourinho's, I'm going to say love affair, hate affair with Liverpool, and Benítez especially starts, I think, this season. He would have been raging, and so must Ferguson have been. Coming to Old Trafford to knock Liverpool off their perch after embarrassing his Aberdeen team in 1980, and getting there with the league titles, and Liverpool are nowhere near that, but they're supposed to be done. How are they winning the Champions League? And that's back on terms there in terms of his individual spell, but that will all develop and play out. Davey, I'll ask you this. Something happened this night that has not happened since in the Champions League. Do you know what it is?
Jimmy Traore won a medal.
Liverpool kept the cup.
That's it, the 5th win. Yes.
Yep. It's either given it to for 5 times, or if you won 3 in a row, normal winners would get to keep the cup for 10 months, hand it back, and then they would get something slightly smaller. And that is the way it is now. They've never allowed anyone to keep it. So the one that was won in 2006, which we'll get to next time, is still the one I think that's kicking about.
Because otherwise Real Madrid would have
exactly
20 of them. Yeah.
Mentioned it and pretty much. Guys, it's been a fun 3 weeks. An incredible Champions League season. Thank you, David.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to top, but that's a good thing. We know that there are years that do it, so lots to look forward to. And incredibly, a Liverpool side coming back 2 years later to meet the same opponents. I mean, while being absolutely not quoted in their league. Bizarre.
Adam, thank you for your insight into the madness.
Thank you. Yeah, a wee bit of vengeance, which is probably rare for these ones coming up in a couple of years. We're still a way off what I think is probably my favourite final, but I will not spoiler that right now. It will be 3 months away probably. So yeah, mark your calendars for that one. But yeah, this one has been great. The whole Mourinho aspect, we probably could have done an entire show on that, just to talk about him coming in, what that meant, the battles that he goes on to have. I'm looking forward to charting some of those. But yeah, this was a fantastic final. Some really good games in there. Maybe not as barnstorming knockout stages in certain aspects, certainly not as from ones we've seen before, but the final more than makes up for it. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
So Liverpool won the Champions League. Manchester United have won it in its new format. Chelsea look as if surely it's only a matter of time before they do with their new strength. But what of Arsenal, London's biggest club? The final next time is in Paris. Surely it's their time. Until next week. Bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.